So aloha, everyone, and welcome. My name is Phyllis Francis Wigfall, and I want to welcome you to Breaking Through Your Glass Ceiling, How to Unlock Your Leadership Potential and Take Your Career to the Next Level. The intention of this summit is to explore the topic of breaking through your internal and external glass ceiling to get to the level of success that you desire. And so as in most of our interviews in this series, we talk about what it takes to break through to the next level so that you will walk away with powerful tips and strategies that will take you beyond your inner and outer limitations that have stopped you from moving forward. And so I'm really excited as your host, Phyllis Francis Wigfall, professional certified coach from AwakeningLives.com. And today we have a really special guest here. We have Dr. Jeff Alexander. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I wanted to share a little bit about Jeff, and I just want to let everybody know that his full bio is right here on the page, so you'll be able to read all about him as well as take you to his sites. But Dr. Jeff Alexander is a professional trainer, speaker, CEO, entrepreneur, health professional. Jeff is an international personal development trainer that's changed the lives of thousands of people. He's helped organizations and businesses achieve results through his programs as well as speaking appearances. And he's a well-known personality on TV and radio. I mean, he shared the stage with Tony Robbins, Robert Kiyosaki, Buckminster Fuller, Norman Cousins, and other transformational leaders. So this is a real treat to have Jeff here. And today our session is called Ignite Your Life, Live Fearless and Free. So Jeff, yay! I'm so glad we're here talking. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity. Yes, thank you. I wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, I'm happy, first of all, to be here, and I really want to honor you for doing this and bringing so many of us together. The planet is a very fun place that I think that this is very important work that you're doing. Gosh, my story. I wish I could tell you that I designed it exactly the way it turned out, but I think I did not. I was very fortunate to be able to use my intuitive sense and follow it. I thought, like a lot of us, when I was growing up, my father made sausage for a living, and I thought that's what I was going to end up doing. He had a little home business, and he said, Jeff, you're going to be the first doctor. And I thought, well, okay, that'd be great. So I ended up going to UCLA Dental School, and and I went to school for 8 years, and then I went to UCLA for 4 years, and it was really like everything was just working out perfect. You know, I was going to be married in about a year, and I had my first year of dental school that was just about done, and my dad had saved money to put me through school, and becoming a dentist, I figured I'll have enough to be able to pay him back. So it was a dream come true. And then in starting my second year, 1 week before school was going to start, we got married. I flew up to Northern California, and it was on a Sunday, and my dad gave me a big hug on the front lawn as I headed off for my honeymoon. And 5 hours later, I got a phone call from the police saying that my father had passed away. And it was both the best and the hardest day of my life. And I mean, literally within 24 hours of my wedding, I was in a mortuary with a bathing suit on under my jeans, picking out a coffin for my dad. And so that was not in the stars, and that was not something that, of course, I was even prepared for. But like a lot of things, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners would agree, that sometimes the things that happen to us that in the moment feels like a tragedy or a great loss can be a turning point that if you didn't have that happen, you wouldn't grow and you wouldn't be more compassionate or more wise, and that certainly is what was in store for me. But it was a very devastating time in my life, both emotionally. I never lost anybody in my life, and financially, because all of a sudden there I was with 3 big, hefty financial years left and no money, and the funding was gone. So I did what any good dental student would do, is I went into boxing. I know. And so what happened was, and why I chose that, is that I was having to go to school 40 hours a week, and I was a custodian at night, and that wasn't paying the bills. And so I was really a great martial artist back in those days, but there was no money. So I had heard in Los Angeles, if you become a boxer, that you can then attract a lot of potential students because LA is full of actors who want to be good in the ring that get parts for movies. So I went into boxing, and I ended up having 29 fights, and I can literally say I fought my way through school. I really mean it. And what started to happen was, it was a very brutal pathway. We're not made to do that, but it was a way to earn some income. And at the same time, there was a bigger calling that if that wouldn't have happened, if it wasn't for my father passing, if it wasn't for the energy directing me into this arena of combat, I would have never hooked up with police officers and law enforcement and victims of crime in Los Angeles, which is what ended up happening. A lot of people that came to see me fight, they came because the media just jumped on this. They love the controversy. And so they used to build me back in those days. This is like in the mid-'70s, as the guy who fixes them during the day and then knocks them out at night, because I was a health professional at UCLA, walking around. Walking around Beverly Hills, with all that energy. And then at night, I would end up going to East LA and in the San Fernando Valley and go to the ghettos, which was a completely different energy, to work out in the gyms, and that's where the good fighters are. So that diverse background was really healthy for a 23-year-old kid who didn't know much about life back then. But it put me in exposure of a lot of different people that I learned from. Along the way, one of the fans that I had was a police officer that came up to me. He was a high-ranking police officer in East L.A. who said, look, you can articulate well, you seem to be somewhat educated, and you're a fighter, and we need help. We have young officers getting out of the academy, and they are very limited in their perception or their experience of confrontational situations that ignite fear. There's that word, ignite. So I said, okay, what would you like me to do? He said, we will pay you if you put together some programs that could be supplemental programs that could work with these police officers that could help them embrace fear better. Well, I got to tell you, Phyllis, I knew a lot about dentistry and a lot about my trade, but now I was thrust into a situation where if I didn't teach successfully, the consequence could be devastating to these officers, which means it would be death. And so I did three things. I knew what I didn't know back then, and I said I need to ride with police officers to see what violence is like in the streets and really see that it's different than in the boxing ring, because in the ring there's rules and consent. And I also, so I did that. I actually got a chance to go into penitentiaries and talk to people who hurt people for a living, and looked at that reality energy, and that was very, very, very hard for me back then, but I knew I needed to cultivate some experience there. If I was going to design a program to embrace the violence of the world, I needed to know what I was doing and what that looked like. Third thing I did was I was able to actually talk to victims of crime, and I never talked to somebody who had been harmed in a violent physical situation, and I wanted to find out the mistakes they made. All in all, to fast forward, I put together a very visceral program for the police officers, and it lasted about 2 or 3 weeks, and they would actually come to my gym, and I would train them one-on-one, and we would devise programs, because I knew that what the problem was that these guys and ladies would be learning about fear academically, mentally. Yet when you're in the streets, if bullets are whizzing past your head, it's a visceral feeling, as anybody would know, that fear is a feeling in your body. And when that happens, if the mind does not know what to do with that, it's going to default back on the subconscious programming that came in when we were 5, 6, 7 years old. And what I've noticed is that programming is most of the time wrong. It doesn't embrace fear as something as a catalyst to take action. In fact, people tend to freeze and move backwards away from it. little did I know I was literally also designing and learning about future programs that I would end up teaching and implement in my own corporate world of healthcare. But that was my starting place. And so what I did, I made sure that I learned how to teach, not just what to teach, and hanging out with different masters that I would go and spend time with, like Buckminster Fuller and other great teachers that had an alternative way of teaching what it is that their gift was. I knew that it had to be three things, that when I taught, it had to be not just academically and mentally, it had to be emotionally, and it had to be physical, because experience is the mother of all learning, and fear is a visceral feeling. It's like me trying to say, Phyllis, hey, I'd like to teach you how to ski. You've never seen snow, and here's a book. Read it. Well, you can mentally know what it's about, but until you get on the snow and feel that wind and the gravity pulling you down and fall down a couple of times, you haven't really skied. And that was my challenge with the police officers. Little did I know the lateral effect that it would have in my ability not just to teach, but my love for it, is that when these officers would go through these trainings, the success rate, it climbed through the roof. Nobody got harmed anymore. They became more able to embrace the feeling that we call fear and confrontation. They became more confident. But the thing that really felt absolutely astonishing was that they wanted to talk about other areas of their lives. Because when you master fear in one area, it tends to bleed into other areas, like your relationships, your careers, your wants, and your personal wants and not wants. And that was really the beginning of the Ignite program back then. Of course, it was just with law enforcement, but then they started to refer victims of crime. They referred a lot of people who weren't winning in traditional therapy. And little by little, I just kept teaching. So there I was going to UCLA during the day. I finally accumulated enough money. I worked with celebrities and stuntmen and people like that to teach them how to look good for the movies. But the law enforcement and the victims of crime were really the greatest teachers that I had, along with other masters I was able to attract myself to, like Bucky Fuller and them, that put it all together in this cosmic milkshake that turned out to be Ignite, which I made now then for the general public. And I learned a lot through that. So that was my early background. So if it wasn't for what I now call the gift of losing my father, and the tremendous gift that was, he was only 49 years old at the time, and what that invited me into in my own path of fear was a gift that now I've been able to touch many, many people in the world that have come from all over to be able to experience. There's a new alternative, and there's a new response to fear, and it doesn't have to be our limited perception of fear, which can be devastating, but it can be an invitation to greatness. So and I've been doing it ever since. So from there, I went back to Northern California, and I was a children's dentist. That was my specialty. So I opened up the Youthful Tooth Company for kids in Northern California. Didn't know anything about business, but I knew a lot about what I wanted to do. And like a lot of people, a lot of young entrepreneurs that go into the business world, they have a dream and a vision and a mission. And then the first thing that hits them is all the challenges and the things that bump your head on the ceiling. And I saw once again that it was kind of fear disguised in a lot of the challenges in the business world that would stop people. So I took everything that I learned from my days with the police officers and my trainings with them, everything I learned from Buckminster Fuller and people like Marshall Thurber and others I worked with, like Robert Kiyosaki and Tony Robbins back then, and I just experimented and used my own corporate business as a laboratory to experiment with everything. My wonderful staff of angels, they said, oh, my gosh, here he comes with a new system to try out again today. But we started with one office in 1977, one office that was committed to seeing children that were Medicaid children. And these children were not being taken care of by any other professionals because they were government-sponsored, and you got very little money, and nobody was treating these kids. They told me I'd be out of business in 6 months if I treated these children, and that was almost 40 years ago, we have now treated over 500,000 Medicaid kids in the San Francisco Bay Area. 2 years later, we had 7 offices. I had 3 in San Diego, 4 in Northern California, and what I started to do at that point in time, because I was asked to teach how I did that in my early 30s, and it was essentially just incorporating everything I learned back from the ability to embrace fear and empower you rather than dismantle you, as well as a lot of the stuff that I learned from Buckminster Fuller on the physical principles of the world and how they really truly work, and creating the traditional win-win experience for my own company. And it went to a $5 million a year business, and it was not something I planned. All I wanted to do was help a bunch of kids. But the whole core program that I taught back then was essentially, if you add value to the community, if you do it with integrity, when the challenges come, and if you know how to perceive confrontation as an invitation, then you're going to be just fine. And I really feel that businesses fail not because of undercapitalization. They basically fail because there's no brightness in the future and there's no ingenuity for them to be able to explore the fear barrier. So that's it in a nutshell.
Wow, that's quite a nutshell. I mean, that's quite a story.
Well, yeah, it was kind of crazy days, and and I'm just glad that I made it through 29 fights without getting hurt.
I know, 29 fights. Wow. And so, Jeff, it's so amazing. Like you were saying, with your experience, you've been able to master fear, and it's like when I think of fear, I think how people just go into an automatic fight or flight. But you've created a way where you can move out of that and use it as an empowerment tool as opposed to dismantling you. And can you share more about that? Like, how did you create a system so that people could do that?
Well, there was a lot of trial and error, and again, going back to law enforcement, a lot of the students that I worked with, God bless them, I was able to utilize them in ways where we safely got to experiment. I knew that it had to be, like I said earlier, it had to be an emotional, mental, and physical learning experience, and in a safe environment. I was ravenous on material. I knew early on that there was 2 kinds of fear. There's primordial fear, which is natural, and it's really important. Primordial fear is the fear that tells you, there's a bear coming at you, and you feel this adrenaline. Your heart pounds, and it's time to fight or flight. And when it's a bear, you better fight. So,
right.
that's only supposed to last 3 to 5 minutes. Because what happens in that case, what happens to the body is that all the blood goes from the forebrain to the back part of the brain. The blood comes from the internal organs to your arms and legs so that you can use your muscles. And the biggest thing is a drain on the energy to the immune system in the body. So the immune system of your body takes about 70% of the energy just to keep the immune system going. But how Mother Nature works is that you don't really need your immune system for 3 to 5 minutes, because you need to have everything you can to react appropriately to this stimulus of fear and get away. And then very rapidly what happens, once you get to a safe place in this primordial fear state, everything goes back to normal again. The heart and the internal organs now have the maximum blood. The blood goes from the back of the brain to the forebrain again, so you have logical thinking again and rational thinking, and the immune system kicks in, is going full speed. Where we get into trouble, and this is where I design my training, so we get into trouble as a second kind of fear, which is psychological fear. And that's the kind of fear I don't know if you've ever been like me or many people. You ever play movies in your head and the movies get so real that you actually get an emotional response?
Yes.
Yes. I mean,
yes,
I've even heard, and I know that I can say I have myself, I've been in the car by myself, and I found myself so into those movies, I'll start arguing out loud, and there's nobody in the car. Some people, there are some cultures call that insanity,
Right.
And that's a good example of psychological fear, where the little voice in your head and the movies that we create in our head that possibly now we think about that bear that we really saw last week, but now we're just sitting in the car thinking about it, and we have a visceral and emotional response. The problem here is this, is that with psychological fear, because there's no outside stimulus, it's all inside, it doesn't leave. And it's hard to leave because the mind job is to make you survive. So it's constantly scanning the horizon for the next threat. And that's pretty much what it does, the ego mind. And so when there is no outside threat and it's all coming from the inside, what happens is the mind can't see a resolution to it, so it persists. And that's very unhealthy. That's what causes the immune system to not return back. It causes fatigue. It causes what we call bad stress. And it also can cause the way we behave. And therein, we can behave if you're a police officer and react in a way that's not healthy and the way that you have learned to behave in your academy training. If you could be a father, you could be a mother, and you could behave inappropriately. I don't know about you, but there's been times when I've allowed my anger to have me say something I wish I didn't say to somebody I love. And therein you have the psychological response to fear and anger and all of the children of fear that persists, and it affects how we behave. The good news is this, that psychological fear is nothing but those old programs that get in before we're 7 years old that came in from the outside world that we don't really even know that we picked, because when we're in that stage of 7 years old or younger, it's kind of a hypnotic stage where you just record everything that comes in. And so what I took a look at is understanding this. Now, we just had kind of a mental conversation, and, I could have some really cool flip charts and show you some cool PowerPoints. But other than that, we just had a mental conversation. What I've done with that now is allow people, through experiences that I've designed that are very safe, to have that feeling of fear come up, and with it comes those decisions that we made. And you could take a look at it. You can't change something that you're not aware of. You can't shift something that you're unconscious to. So what I knew is that fear is an emotional response. You don't feel fear in your head. You feel fear in your heart. You feel fear mostly in your stomach, and it permeates out to your limbs. And so knowing that, it made sense to me that has something to do with the programming. So we need to not go back, but allow the stimulus to bring that feeling forward again, see what it is, and there's usually a belief behind it. And what I feel is that the beliefs that affect our behavior do not need to be changed. They're fine. If it wasn't for those beliefs, we wouldn't be where we are today. If it wasn't for my beliefs, if it wasn't for your belief, Phyllis, you and I wouldn't be talking right now, because every little increment of our lives lead us to this moment. The question is are we aware of that, and are those things that lead us to this moment always healthy? And some of them are, and you know the ones that aren't. Your intuition will tell you, and there is a way to go back and reprogram those the way you would with a computer. I mean, when your computer doesn't work well, you upgrade the software. You don't go to it and yell at it and make it wrong. It's just software that just took it in. So what I worked with is that I learned many years ago that the way to go back in is through the pathway of emotion. And it's now been, if you ever listen to Greg Braden or Bruce Lipton's work, they have, with a lot of the research that they have worked with, have shown how the DNA of our own body is affected by emotion and how it literally can change. I just wrote a paper, and I used an oyster, for example, as an example. An oyster will have a grain of sand in the soft tissue that irritates it. Well, that could be like a stimulus that we have in our day that could be irritating, or we resist it. However, in the DNA of an oyster, in the potential sleeping dormant, is the power to literally take that grain of sand and turn it into a pearl. And without the discomfort, without the irritation, there is no pearl. So through all the years, when I took a look at all of the challenges, whether it's my father dying or working with police officers, or the thousands of people who have shared some of the traumatic experiences in their lives, those are the grains of sand that we have the opportunity, if we wake up the sleeping giant inside of us, to make pearls of them. Therefore, fear can be a friend. It does not have to be the enemy. It's just basically a 9-year-old student of mine said, it's a feeling in the body that tells me about my environment so I can make the right choices. 9 years old when he said that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So I mean, I could go for days, but I know we only have a limited amount of time, but that is basically what all my teachings, whether it's in the business world, whether it's in personal relationships or coaching or the Ignite program, they all eventually wrap around this misperception we have of this natural thing in our body, and to know when we're in psychological fear and how to move from that to a healthy perception of fear. Okay.
That's really powerful. I mean, there really is, and it's like, and when I'm thinking about it, it's like, I'm liking what you said in regards to, so we're able to connect to the pathway through our emotions, and then the emotions will take us to the core belief. How do you get from the energy of your emotions to the core belief? Like, how do you help people access that so that they're able to then shift that?
Well, again, you know, it's like, again, I'll tell you in words how my approach is, and again, it's like I'm trying to tell you how it feels to speak.
Right, it's like we have to experience.
So I'll give it my best shot, but we're having a mental conversation about an emotional thing. The thing to know is that we are electrical magnetic beings. We are energy, and in us we everything is vibration. I mean, you're listening to these words right now because there's a vibration that somehow technology is able to embrace and send it over to you. You take them in your ears, and your brain turns it into something that's understandable, and that's all energy and vibration. Well, we are made of electrical magnetic impulses. The brain is electromagnetic, but a lot of people don't know that the heart, the center of emotion, is in the heart area. Not just the organ of the heart, but that area and the energy there. This is scientifically proven, and there is 100 times electrically more power in the heart than the brain. There is 5,000. The heart is 5,000 times magnetically more powerful than the brain. So the heart is an emoter, and that is energy. That is a vibration. And heart math science in 1997 just discovered that it literally radiates out from the body 5 to 8 feet from the human being. This is why you can walk into a room, and I don't know if you've ever felt this, sometimes you can feel kind of funky and weird and you don't know why. Well, you're feeling the energy in that room. On the other hand, you know, you could meet somebody, and you know, you and I just talked for the first time not too long ago, and even though you're in Hawaii and I'm in California, there was an instant like, oh, a good feeling, a good vibration, like I know you. It's because this field of energy between it that the heart speaks through is way stronger than the mind and the brain. The mind is also in the heart. So that being said, and knowing that if the heart is emotion, it's the emoter, a lot of people don't know the difference between emotion and feeling. You feel the feelings in your body. What emotion is the response to the movies in your head. And what your body doesn't know the difference between the movies in your head, that psychological fear, or the real fear that's literally out there in front of you. It's going to respond the same way because the body lives in the now. Your body didn't digest or have cells take care of things yesterday or tomorrow. It's taking care of it right now as we speak. Your heart is emoting right now. Emotion lives in the now. You feel things now. You don't feel things tomorrow. You'll think about them tomorrow, but you feel them now. The mind is the only thing that lives in the future and in the past. That little voice in your head only knows the future or past. When you're driving in the car, if you're having that argument with somebody, it's probably an argument you either had, and you're going to rehearse it now, or the next one in the future. So when you have that gap between a body that has a future mind but yet lives in the now, that's where the anxiety and the resistance is in. Knowing that, what I've done through the accelerated teaching methodology by using how the brain sees things is create situations and create exercises that if you're going to come in and learn, for example, to negotiate, you're going to negotiate, and I set up for you to have learning experiences. Some people call them failures, but I call them learning experiences in the program, so that those experiences will be the best teacher while you are going through it, and I let you unravel it with my guidance. And that's what a good coach does. I love what you had on your website and how people benefit by coaching, because it pushes them. It makes them look at things differently than they would have ever looked at before. And so the exercises that I create are not just mental, but they're things that are going to provide you opportunities and the unknown to unravel, whether it's negotiations, whether it's management principles, whether it's speaking in front of a room like the Voice of Power, or the Ignite program, which is about confrontation. And so confrontation in the Ignite program is the method that we use, and we have a series of 7 to 8 exercises that anybody can go through. And when I say exercises, I don't mean like so much physical exercises, but you will use your body, you use your emotions, and you use your mind to go through these programs, not knowing the end result of each one. And what happens is that your heart, that is the emoter, will then, you'll start to see how it takes over, and you begin to learn how to utilize that to then add a new little tag of awareness to that belief as it surfaces and bubbles to the top, so that the next time it comes up, it's changed because you've added a successful endpoint to it. I hope this makes sense.
Oh my God, this is so great what you're saying.
Well, you know, when you upgrade your software and you go from like System 101 to System 707, you didn't get rid of 101. You put patches on it. You added things to it. You can make connectors to it. You let it do what it did, and then you improved it because of the need factor, because the grain of sand told you time to make 101 a pearl and make it into a 707, if that makes sense. It's the same thing with our own programming. A lot of people try to go back, and the first thing they tend to do is they use blame, or they make people wrong, including their own parents or the outside world, for these belief systems, and they did the best they could. I mean, the ancients taught us, forgive them, they don't know what they do. Well, that's what ignorance does. And so those programs are just fine. They just need to be patched and upgraded to a 707 to deal with the things of the world in a healthy way. And that's what the accelerated teaching, and when you go to the website and you see a part where I talk about accelerated teaching, learning has to happen the way the brain was created, which is through color, through emotion, through music, through the way that we learn rapidly. The first 7 years of our life, 95% of your programming got in, and it was through the ways that I just mentioned. So I designed all of our programs in that same way. There's no way. Can you imagine me teaching 35 police officers about fear at a desk with a PowerPoint? It just doesn't work. That's why they were having problems in the street, because it just didn't. You can't fix the washing machine when it's the oven that's broke. You've got to go within. And it's been said, the ancients have said it, that power is within you, and that's where you got to go. If the fear is within you, you've got to go where the fear lives, and you don't make it wrong. There's certain traps along this spiritual path that we're all on. You have to watch out for them. And the first one that people do is they make things wrong, or they judge themselves. And you don't. It's just there. It's time to upgrade it. So hopefully this makes a little bit of sense, at least in a dialogue. But it's
it's so rich what you're saying. I mean, first off, the conversation you just shared about between the heart and the mind was brilliant. I mean, that was a great. But it's like I understand what you're saying is it's an experiential process. You have to kind of recreate the experience of us having an emotion through a series of exercises that you take us through, and then train us how to be able to respond more effectively and powerfully, as opposed to the fight or flight or our automatic kind of intrinsic or instinctive energies or reactions.
Right, because it's not a lot of. I grew up in a house just like a lot of us did, where it looked like the events of the world can obviously not be controlled, and they cause suffering. And what I realize now, at the age I'm at right now, it's not the events of our lives that cause suffering. It's our perception to these events that causes the suffering.
Right.
And
it's how we relate to the event.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's how we view them. What glasses are we looking through when we have these events? You know, you have someone like Mother Teresa who sees a hungry child on the street, and rather than saying, oh, poor dear, she gets on her knees and she views it as an opportunity to fulfill a divine mission and feed that child. So the response is completely different because the behavior is affected by the belief inside the body. So if you change the beliefs, you change the behavior, and you change the results. I've seen it in business. People ask, well, how did you go from one office to 7 offices in 2 years? How did you go from $300,000 the first year to over $5 million in 2 years? And it wasn't so much that I was smart. It was because we shifted the perception, and I made sure I attract people that wanted to have a mission bigger than a paycheck.
Yeah.
And the whole game of it was, if you don't enjoy watering the tree, if you're doing it to get the fruit, then your attention's on the wrong thing. If you enjoy the service of watering the tree, you'll have plenty of fruit, and you'll have enough to plant an orchard, and that is the key to leverage. And in my leadership program, that is the first thing that I have people do, is get your attention off the fruit. You help someone else, give them more than you would yourself, and they will keep you around forever. And that was the place where we started. And that comes, again, back to the heart. And so, you know, and you lead with your heart and you follow with your head. That's what, you know, in fact,
right.
I did that many times in the ring, you know. You know, it was an interesting story. When I went into the boxing ring, let's face it, it's gladiator. It's crazy thing.
Right.
So one of the things I did that I teach now today was that in those 4 corners of a ring, it's a world in itself. And one of the things I looked into is, what's the worst thing that could happen when you're in a boxing ring? And how could I use it as a metaphor for life? And everybody told me, and every trainer that worked with me said, you don't want to get caught in the corner. Because when you're caught in the corner, it's disabling. Every fighter sees you trapped in the corner, and they're going to come in for the kill. So knowing that and using my mind to say, okay, what's the best thing to do? Because there's going to come a day I'm going to be caught in the corner. And do I want that to be my weak link? Now, again, I hope you hear the message behind the message. In life, in business, in relationships, you're going to get caught in the corner. So I made it my business that, and they say that the fights are won not on the championship night, they're won in the gym where you train, where you condition, where you build new habits, where you create new behaviors. And so I made it my job that if I was going to train for 2 hours, one of those hours would be I would start in the corner of the ring. I get the biggest guys as my sparring partners, and then the bell would ring, and I'd have to fight out of the corner every single time. So that the point was this, is that I'm going to make the corner my friend. I'm going to make the place where everybody's scared to go my friend, so that when I feel those ropes touch my back, I get strong. And so what I did is I took what everybody was scared of. I'll let that lead my path to where I'm going to get strong. And I think I've just described really the core difference between a leader and a follower. Is they're not afraid to go into the corner, and they see it, and they make friends with discomfort, and they know that if I'm going to lead from the front, I'm going to be the first to hit the branch out there. So I need to make friends with discomfort, make it my friend, have it empower me. And that's what leaders do. And I got to tell you, you know, you go back to the real boxing match, and on fight night, I would purposely find myself going into the corner and watch my opponent completely get out of control and come after me. And that's where many of my knockouts were done, is in the corner, because of the surprise. I just utilized what everybody else was scared of and made that my friend. And that's basically the core of Ignite. you can imagine that if fear entered your body, and it's going to continue, this feeling in your body, but if you, rather than freeze, you know what to do and make healthy decisions because your programming has been upgraded, what would that mean in your life and relationships, and telling the truth to people that you're scared to tell the truth to going for your career and jumping off the thing that you don't want to do and following your divine mission, or picking up a leper in India. It doesn't really matter what your divine mission is. When fear comes up, it can literally empower you to go forward, but you've got to go back. You've got to trust your heart. You've got to use that 5,000 times power to help ignite you forward, and then the rest of that is called faith, and faith is knowing what to do with what you know.
Gosh, this is so rich. I mean, we could talk about this for a long time, and I'm so glad that you really explained it so clear with your analogies, and how fear, I can see now how fear is a catalyst to take action, and how you can train yourself to be able to know how to respond, and so with power, you know.
Yes.
This is
brilliant. Well, it's important, you know, I've said it, and I was actually, I have been criticized in my earlier years a lot because I used to say, you know, passion is not enough. And I would hear people say, all you need is passion and you make it work. And I you know, anybody in the world of business, I think, might find their way sooner or later that there's been a lot of people with a lot of passion, a lot of inspiration, but we live in a world where you need skill sets and you need tools that can combine with that passion. And so you can have a very passionate heart, 5,000 times the power of your brain. However, you do need to direct that energy into a path, and that's where the skills and the tools come in. And then the next part is taking action if you want to have the results. You know, and so in every program that I've attempted to teach, or I've trained trainers to teach in their programs, is please provide people not just the inspiration, but show them how. Show them how to do it and how to use tools to open hearts, not to compete. You know, I learned that from Bucky. There's enough to go around for everybody. There's abundance. We don't need to compete anymore. There's no such thing as scarcity. That's part of that psychological fear. There is enough. There's enough to feed everybody on the planet. And when you know this, and he's proven it scientifically. So when you know this and you understand it, then it's a matter of using the tools to build, not to destruct. You know, I've said it a million times to a lot of my friends. You could take a pen that has $100,000 of value to it, the greatest pen in the world, but it can't write a line of poetry by itself. You've got to have the inspiration, and you've got to have the tool, and then you take action. So that's what I think. I think the thought leaders of today and the people that are teaching programs that I'm trying to offer into the world understand that you're in the world. We have to pay our rent. We've got to do our dues, but you also need to do it with a direction that is divine. That's where the heart comes in.
I really love this, Jeff, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to share about your free gift. Jeff is being hugely generous.
Yeah. Well, it's my pleasure. I mean, we have a free seat. In fact, what I'd like to do, I've been so touched by talking to you. I mean, you are a telephone for the divine, and I really, really appreciate that. I just want, before I talk about that, I just want to acknowledge you, because it's people like you and what you're doing in the world by doing this and bringing people like me and all our brothers and sisters out there that are making an attempt, that you basically take that magnifying glass and bring it to somebody who may hear this and feel touched to make a little difference in their life. So I just want to let you know that I know that about you, and I really want to acknowledge that in you.
Thank you.
And the greatest thing my pleasure. The greatest thing I have to offer is what I do. And for many years, I did this as just a community gift when I was working with a lot of victims of crime and children. And now that we're back and stuff, we're having a special launch offer that we're making it easy for people to take the Ignite program in November. And I've given you, and I would like to give you a couple seats for free to utilize any way you want for your listeners. And and that's the whole program. I mean, it's a Friday night. We get together Friday night. I give you the lowdown how you're going to get through the program. It's a Saturday, and Saturday morning goes into the evening. And then Sunday is we make it all work, because I feel that there's no program in the world that's going to make the change. You're going to make the change when the real program begins, and that's Monday when the program's over.
Right.
So Monday we take. Well, that's a seminar. That's a real seminar. That's a curriculum called Life. And so Sunday is about taking the experience and integrating it into your life so that Monday when you go to work, when you go home, when you go to your relationships, wherever you go, you literally have the tools to use your life as the curriculum so that when these challenges come up, you have the grist for the mill. You have those grains of sand and you go out and make pearls. And so you have a couple seats from me, and I hope that somebody takes advantage of that so I could have the gift of providing this service to anybody who you desire.
Oh, wow. So this is great. So you're offering a special guest waiver to Ignite Your Life 2016. This is great.
Two. I'm going to give you two.
Two?
Yes, I want you to have two of them. Yes.
This is great.
One for the heart.
Thank you.
One for the heart and one for the brain. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'd like to offer you two of those, and we can talk about how we can do that later and stuff. But I'd like to give you two seats because I'm just inclined to do that for you.
Oh, that's so awesome. And Jeff, where can people find you? Where can they find you if they want to learn more about you?
The easiest way, I'm going everywhere right now. In fact, we're going to be going to Thailand in February and in Singapore. There's a real calling. Asia is really calling for this work. I'm in the Northwest in Washington. I'm calling you from California. I have my practices in California. I still experiment with my practices that I own. But the greatest way people can get a hold of me is probably on my website, which is www.jeffalexanderignite.com. And a lot of videos on there, and also the Facebook fan page at Jeff Alexander Ignite Facebook fan page. There's a lot of short video clips on who I am and the program. But the best one to do is just go to the website, JeffAlexanderIgnite.com, and then they have programs there and the Ignite one's coming up November 4th through the 6th in Seattle, Washington.
That's great. And so, for everybody listening, on the page where you're listening, there is going to be a link there so that you can take it to Jeff's free gift and his website so you can have access to his work. Wow, this is such a rich interview. I mean, we could talk for hours on this, and I just want to thank you for really, taking the time out to share this because it was really transformational. I mean, I felt like I got a lot of really good insights about what you were explaining, and I'm looking forward to actually experiencing it, and so that's very exciting. So
it's my
thank
pleasure.
You very much.
And again, thank you for all you do, and I'd love to have you join me sometime, and you would be wonderful to have in the room. What a star you'd be. Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm all yours. So, and to all the listeners out there, you can make it happen. And I really appreciate the time that you've listened to this, and hope that it's touched your heart so that you can live the dream that you were meant to live.
So thank you. So all of you listening, this is, again, Phyliss Francis Wigfall here with Dr. Jeff Alexander, encouraging you to ignite your life by living fearless and free. And this is so great. There's going to be a replay. So for those of you looking at your inbox, look for your next interview as well as a replay of our conversation with Dr. Jeff Alexander. And until next time, I'll see you again.